What's going on, everybody? A question I'm always asked is what junglers are good in the meta right now? What jungler should I play in high elo? What jungler should I play in low elo? Do I play this champion to climb? Etc, etc. I get this question a million times, and the thing is that there is so many ways to answer this question, and that's why you'll see a million tier lists out there on what junglers are good, you know, skill cap, pro guides. You'll hear a million different things from a million different people, but for those of you who want my opinion as a master tier jungler, I'm about to tell you what I think are the best junglers on the current patch 12.12, and if you do like this style of video, I'm down to do this updated list for every single patch going forward. You know, it just depends on what you guys want. Let me know in the comments. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. So, Olaf. Now, Olaf got his rework not that long ago, but after a series of nerfs due to the fact that he was pretty broken, I think he's mostly just B tier. I think that Olaf is, and always has been, a super one-dimensional champion, and really how strong he is just based on how much he's able to just like stat check his opponent realistically. He's an insanely strong duelist. He's really strong in like mid-game fights. He's a little bit better late game now than he was before, but he's still mostly a mid-game centered character. And if you like 1v9ing, he can still do it. But I think Olaf is just about average. Now Echo is also B tier, and the thing about Echo is that he really could be higher up on this list, but the thing about Echo is that he's really just a one-trick champ. You usually don't see Echo in junglers that have multiple champions in their champion pool. You normally don't see Echo as one of those champions. If there's an Echo player, they're normally a one-trick, and so because of that, Echo honestly could be higher because people who one-trick Echo are obviously make him look better. But because of the fact that he's not really viable he's a very unique pick, so he's not really viable in like a 4 or 5 champion pool. I don't think it's realistic to put him anywhere above B tier. Alright, Fiddlesticks. In my opinion, I think Fiddlesticks is probably got to be one of the most underrated champions in the game. The thing about Fiddlesticks is that he's got a kind of a boring playstyle. He feels clunky to play, and he's also got one of the most unique niche clears, like first clears in the entire game. You actually have to be extraordinarily precise with his clear in order to do it correctly. However, if you are willing to sacrifice, a little bit more boring gameplay, a little bit more of a niche playstyle, I think Fiddlesticks is extraordinarily strong, especially in lower to mid-tier games, mostly just because in higher ranks it becomes a little bit more difficult as people know how to choke you out of vision and will respect the Fog of War a little bit more. But in low elos, nobody respects the Fog of War. People will stand next to a wall that Fiddle can easily ult over, and Fiddlesticks is just one of the most infuriating champs to play against and has probably one of the most game-changing ults in the entire game. So I think Fiddlesticks is very highly rated. Honestly, Warwick, I'm gonna put him maybe just above Olaf, but the thing is that Warwick in some cases might actually be a better top laner than he is a jungler. The thing is that Warwick just pretty much beats any champion 1v1. His early game ganks are pretty insane with his blood passive. His ult gives him a huge power spike. He's a terrible team fighter, and his late game is not very good, but his ability to just run over people in the early game is pretty unmatched. There's probably only a few champions that could even think about 1v1ing him. And because of that, I feel like he just has to be B tier just from raw strength alone in that department. But due to the fact that he has a really bad late game, and he might actually be better in another role than jungle, it's hard for me to imagine putting him higher than B tier. So that's where I put Warwick. He's also a great beginner champion with a lot of with a high skill ceiling. So that's a very important fact about Warwick. All right, Amumu. Now, people tell me that Amumu is really strong in low elo. The thing is that I feel wrong putting him anywhere higher than C tier, because even though he's good in low elo, the thing is that he's literally never played in higher ranks. There's not really anybody who plays him, and because of that, it means that him alone as a champion doesn't actually do enough to justify putting him like high on this list in the meta department. Like he's a super strong champion versus like full AD comps. He's a pretty decent frontliner, a pretty straightforward frontliner, and his ult's very game changing. But his carry potential is quite low. He doesn't do as much damage as he used to, especially earlier last season when he was like the best jungler in the game. I don't think of Amumu very highly, especially given the fact that he just has almost zero pro or high elo play. So I can't imagine putting Amumu anywhere higher than C tier. But because he is decent in low elo, I will at least keep him in C tier. All right, Diana, definitely the first S tier champion on this list. Diana is one of the best junglers in the game. She has this new build where she goes Nashers into Sunfire, which Sunfire cape, which is just insane. Like, I just am getting a fever just thinking about it. Diana is so strong. Her clear speed is insane. Her scaling is disgusting. Her dueling once she reaches her items is crazy. Her team fighting is great. Her solo objective, she can split push. She can literally do everything you ever want. The only weakness of her is that her early game ganks are kind of bad. However, you know, she still has basically 2 dashes, so she can force flashes if she gets a good flank. And Diana is just for sure one of the best junglers in the game right now. All right, I'm gonna put Elise down here in C tier as well. She's actually ironically the complete opposite of Amumu, where she's literally only good in high levels of play. People who play Elise in high levels of play or in higher ranks are able to play Elise because Elise needs to end the game in the first like 20 minutes of the game. She can't let the game go late because her late game is just horrifically bad. But Elise has some of the strongest early ganks, some really strong dueling potential. She has basically the best dive potential of like any jungler in the early levels. So her diving is insane. So if you're able to coordinate dives and wave crashes with your laners, which really only happens in higher ranks, Elise is disgustingly strong. But in lower elos, I have to just say I think Elise is like one of the worst champs in the game in lower ranks. Nobody knows how to play her. No one knows how to play against her. Nobody knows how to end a game that like before 35 minutes in lower elos. So I don't think you should ever play Elise in lower ranks, but in higher ranks, obviously she can be very effective. So that's another C tier champion for the exact opposite reason of Amumu. Now Evelynn, I don't think that Evelynn is very good. I'm gonna put her C tier. Now a lot of people will probably be surprised that she's C tier because Evelynn is a champion that is super frustrating to play against, and she feels OP to play against. I mean, she's got invisibility, she's got one-shot potential, so it's always gonna feel like she's broken. But if you're an Evelynn main or an Evelynn player, which I've talked to you know, like some Evelynn players, like Anthony Evelynn, for example, playing Evelynn versus Death Dance Maw is just it's just so depressing. Like, everybody in the game builds those, every bruiser in the game builds those items, Death Dance Maw, and it just makes Evelynn's life just feel like a living hell. There's just no shot you ever one-shot somebody who has those items, and those items are so prevalent, and it's so easy to itemize MR right now that for Evelynn, her life is pretty sad. Now, in games where people can't itemize MR, or maybe in lower ranks, I guess, if they're not, you know, good enough with their builds to itemize MR, I could see Evelynn being stronger. But as far as I'm aware of Evelynn's current state, there's just too much MR in the game to justify putting Evelynn any higher than C tier. Alright, Graves. Now, Graves, I don't think he is in the greatest spot, but the thing about Graves is that he is just always a jungler's worst nightmare. The reason why he's a jungler's worst nightmare is he can clear extremely fast, he always clears at full HP, his E passive being able to stack that basically means that he's got 100 like to 200 like armor at all times as like a ranged semi-ranged damage champion. So basically you can never invade him because he's always full health. He's too hard to invade because he's got health, armor, just like raw stats, and he's got escapes. He can invade you because you can realistically never duel him since he can just fight you safely. There's so many reasons why Graves is just infuriating to play against, so even in times where he's not the strongest champion, I think he will still be considered B tier, mostly just because of the fact that he is just such a naturally abusive champion to other junglers. Alright, now Hecarim, I would say, is probably around here, just a little bit above Olaf. For a long time, people were going the Chem Tank build on Hecarim. I think that build is probably dead now. I don't think that any Hecarim mains are still running that build. They're Divine Sunder, Divine Sunder into Death Stance, I think is probably the best build for Hecarim now. And a lot of people had a hard time adjusting from Chem Tank back into Divine Sunder or even Triforce. And so because of that, his win rate plummeted. But I think Hecarim is an underrated gem. A lot of people underestimate how strong the champion actually is. And he's around this, and he's basically like Olaf in the sense that he just runs you down in the mid game, except I think he's just more dynamic, has better ganks, pretty comparable clear speed, if not faster. I think Hecarim is still strong, and if you liked playing him when he was broken, you should keep playing him. Alright, Jarvan is basically the same champion as Elise, except a little bit better. Honestly, you could make the argument that Jarvan is B tier, even maybe even high B tier. But the thing is that Jarvan just isn't a good champion in low elo. Realistically, any early game super early game focused jungler is not going to be very good in low elo because games just last too long and then you end up falling off. So even like if I were to play Jarvan in like silver, for example, I would probably be able to get like 10 KP in 15 minutes or something, or like 10, probably even more than that, 10 KP in 10 minutes. But the problem is that converting that into a win as Jarvan alone is really difficult. So you can get as many ganks and kills as you want, but Jarvan doesn't scale well, he falls off, and he also doesn't really have great ability to push on his own. So in my humble opinion, I think that while Jarvan can be super strong in high elo where games will end very quickly, I mean, you get 10 kill participation in 10 minutes in like Masters, and the enemy is going to open mid. Like that's going to happen. But in low elo, they'll just scale up. Your team will make mistakes, and it'll be really, really hard to end with Jarvan. So I'm just going to preface that because I'm probably going to do that with most early game junglers. They're mostly not going to be placed that highly because the majority of ranks in League of Legends can't really utilize these champions very well. But that's just my opinion on Jarvan. Now Karthus, I think Karthus is underrated as well. Honestly, right now the A tier is looking like the underrated tier because Karthus and Fiddlesticks are honestly pretty similar in what they do. They both power farm early game, scale up until wait till they hit level 6, and then they have a lot of value at level 6. But the thing is they just keep infinitely scaling, and Karthus and Fiddlesticks, but in this case Karthus, is probably gotta be top 10 best scaling champ in the game. I mean, obviously you put like Kassadin and Kayle up there, but Karthus is right there too. And I don't think a lot of people realize how Karthus just, once he's full build, he can literally just throw himself into the enemy team and basically win you a team fight. Karthus is insane. He can still be good in high low, but especially in low low where games are just extended forever, having a Karthus on your team will literally guarantee that even if you're losing, you can bring the game to 40 minutes. So I think Karthus is really strong. Now Kayn is a weird one because I actually do think that Kayn is A tier, but only one of his forms is A tier. So Rost is not very good. Rost is the good one. Rost is extremely, extremely strong. He benefits a lot from the durability patch. He's just super tanky. The healing he gets is still incredibly high, especially with the Grievous Wounds nerf. So I think Kayn is really, really strong. Blue Kayn is pretty bad. I mean, Blue Kayn honestly would probably be in C tier, just because most assassins lethality items aren't particularly good right now. But due to the fact that he is Rost or Red Kayn, he is in A tier. So if you're playing Kayn, I would recommend playing him Rost unless you're fully confident in your knowledge on Kayn enough to know when Blue Kayn is the way. Alright, now Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is a champion that I don't think has been good for a while, but especially got hit really hard by the durability changes. So I'm gonna put Kha'Zix here because I do think he is still the 1v9 carry monster he can be if he gets super fed. But generally speaking, I think lethality items are weak, assassins are weak, and unless you're going some kind of like bruisery build on Kha'Zix, I never see this champion be played, and anytime I see him be played, it's just hard to watch. Alright, Kindred has got to be one of my least favorite champions of the game. Now, as a Viego player, I've said this many times on stream. You probably have seen, if you watch my channel, you've probably seen me talk about this matchup a ton. Kindred is one of the most abusive champions in the game. She can basically break the rules of jungling because the way she clears is completely unreadable. Now there's like, she can invade you level 2 because she can just hop over walls. She can go for a full clear. She can do 2 camps into a gank, 3 camps into a gank. She can just do 1 camp into a gank. She can do 3 camps into the opposite side, invading you. Like, what she does is really at the whim of the player, and I call it the Kindred protocol, where when I'm versus Kindred, I do some kind of wacky out of pocket pathing so that Kindred can't punish me, because if I just play the game normally, Kindred is going to just run over me, and that is something that maybe happens less in low elo, whereas only high elo Kindreds really take advantage of it. But in my opinion, I think that Kindred is one of the most despicable champions in the entire game, and oh my god, I need a moment. Okay, we're good. Alright. Hate Kindred, but she is S tier. Master Yi. So Master Yi is getting his rework, but as it stands right now, Master Yi is just dog shit. Now, he may be still good in low elo. I know a lot of people still complain about him, but yeah, Master Yi just is not good. The nerfs he got hit with were just extraordinary, and he is not a good champion right now. However, next patch, it'll be a different story, but as he stands right now, if you were to lock in Master Yi today, he would be a D tier champion, in my opinion. Which, this tier list is my opinion, okay? I don't have u.gg pulled up, okay? This is just my opinion. Alright, Nocturne. I think Nocturne's a solid B tier champion. Maybe I'd put him over Echo. Nocturne's not really seen in high elo that much because his carry potential is kind of low, and he's a pretty one-dimensional champion. Although I do think that Nocturne's probably underrated. The thing is that Nocturne in low elo is literally just like, every time you press R, it's a kill. That's what I've seen. He's also got surprisingly good dueling. He's got really good target focus in late game fights where he can just press R and then dive like the enemy ADC or enemy mid laner. I think Nocturne is pretty underrated. He's very, very easy for... he's actually one of probably the top champions I would recommend to a jungler that's just starting out or a new jungler. I think that Nocturne probably one of the most underrated low elo champions, and I don't think he's super... His carry potential is kind of low, solo carry potential, so that's why I'm not putting him higher than B tier. But yes, that is where I would put Nocturne. Rammus. I think that Rammus is actually kind of surprisingly good. I think I would put him probably low on the low end of B tier, because Rammus is an early game focused champion. He has really good items with all the tank items being buffed, but you just don't really see Rammus. A lot of champions, like if Rammus is versus a true damage champion, he's useless. If he's versus champions who can go like Kraken Slayer, Lord Dominix, he gets outscaled. Rammus, he faces the same problem a lot of tanks face, in the fact that there's just so much physical pen in the game, and Rammus is an AD or an armor focused tank, so it's hard to really justify putting Rammus higher. But in certain team comps, Rammus is just the most dastardly little okay armadillo I've ever seen. But yeah, realistically, I think he's just a perfectly mid-tier champion. All right, Rek'Sai. Now this one might be slightly controversial, but I actually do think that not only is Rek'Sai the only like full early game champion that I'm gonna put in S tier, but I think it kind of breaks the rules of what I said earlier with Elise and Jarvan. But Rek'Sai is just such a despicably good champion. No suit required. She has probably the best early game of any jungler that I can think of. Her ganks are extraordinarily strong with her E. Once she gets Prowler's Claw, her ganks are basically unavoidable. Even if you flash, there's nothing you can do to avoid her if she has Prowler's Claw up. And I've just seen, every time I see Rek'Sai, it's just her completely taking over the game. Even in games where I feel like I've done my best to neutralize her, there's just never really a way to set Rek'Sai behind. Now she is probably not very low elo friendly, just because she actually does have some interesting mechanics. Her W burrow is something that you really have to work hard at and understand before you're able to utilize Rek'Sai to her fullest. But I do think that Rek'Sai, when utilized properly, is an S tier jungler. Rengar, I think, is A tier, and honestly, Rengar might even be S tier. The problem with Rengar is the same problem that he's always had, is that he is actually a pretty difficult champion. In fact, he's probably one of the more difficult champions in the game, in my opinion. Maybe that's a hot take because people think one-shots don't equal skill, but Rengar is, with some form of like bruiser build, I think is actually incredibly strong right now. Rengar, I've always said this about Rengar, so I'll say it again now. Rengar is an assassin that breaks all the rules of being an assassin. The two main weaknesses of being an assassin is that they're squishy and they're weak to CC. So if you lock down an assassin, you can one-shot them. If you catch an assassin in CC, you can kill them. Rengar breaks both those rules with one ability. His W cleanses him from CC and heals back burst damage. So Rengar is just a fundamentally broken champion. He breaks the rules of his class, and when played effectively, I think Rengar is an A tier, arguably even S tier, but because most people can't play him properly, I will just put him in A tier. Sejuani, I think, is basically just a better Rammus, just because of the fact that she has more, what's the word? She has more ways to be useful than just rolling into somebody, but I don't think she's much better than B tier. All tanks kind of have the same issues, and to be honest, I just don't think she is. I don't think she's very good. All right, Shaco. Now, I know that Shaco was probably like, if you were talking about last patch, Shaco probably would be a D tier champion, but he received a buff on the initial patch release of 12.12, and then got another buff for 12.12b. So I think that it's hard to say. It's a little bit hard to say how good he is right now, but I will say that he's definitely at least moved up to B tier. There is a chance that he is higher than this. I'm gonna put him there. There's a champion that there is a chance he is higher than this, depending on how his lethality build feels. I think the fact that lethality is weak in general kind of prevents him from being an A tier, S tier champion. But next patch, after they buff the lethality items, there is just a legitimate chance that Shaco is at least an A tier jungler. All right, Shyvana. I'm gonna put Shyvana actually in A tier. For a long time, Shyvana's actually kind of a similar champion to Fiddlesticks and Karthus. It seems like these three champions in A tier are all kind of similar in the sense that she just wants to farm early game. She wants to scale up. Once she gets 6, she can do ridiculous things. But this tank into bruiser build that Shyvana has is just, it's so busted. She does a ton of damage and is just an unkillable monster. I think the build is Frostfire Gauntlet into Demonic Embrace, I believe, is her build, and yeah, that build is just despicable. Alright, Skarner, D tier. Super one-dimensional champion. Nobody plays this champion. Honestly, I feel like I probably should have made a Skarner tier. I just don't think this champion's very good. I probably should put him below Master Yi. I can't ever see a reason why you would want to pick Skarner. I guess there's a world where, like, if the enemy team has one carry and it's a Zed or something, like 4 tanks and a Zed, I guess you could pick Skarner and just press R on the Zed, but then Zed can just get a QSS. I don't know. Like, I do not think Skarner's very good. Maybe there's some Skarner lovers that watch this video and hate on me. I know Badid, my good friend Badid, plays Skarner and speaks very highly of him, but I've never been convinced that Skarner is anything other than just trash. So that's my opinion. Taliyah. Now, Taliyah's not really much of a jungler these days. She's more of like a mid laner or even a support. I do think Taliyah is still a strong champion. Her rework was very good. I think what her rework did is it really just made her a complete champion. Now, she did receive some nerfs, and I don't think I've really seen her be very effective in the jungle. So I'm going to put her at high C tier because she can be good. She's also a very difficult champion. Very difficult champion. She is very team comp dependent and also is better as more of like a counter pick jungler. So I can't put Taliyah higher than C tier, but I do think she has the potential to be strong. You know, every champion in the game has the potential to be strong if you're good enough at it and you pick it in the right spot. But just for the sake of this tier list, I will put her in C tier. Now, Talon. I would say that Talon is probably in the same spot as Kha'Zix. I think that after Talon's initial nerfs in the jungle where they reduced his W damage to camps, he was hit extremely hard, and then he was hit again really hard by the durability patch. So he's kind of in the same spot as Kha'Zix, but Talon will always be a decent jungler unless they really gut his damage to camps. And the reason for that is because his E just gives him so much maneuverability in the jungle that not really any other jungler can match. And I guess Kayn can match it, and Kindred can sort of match it, but realistically, nobody can match Talon's ability to hop walls and just be, you know, like, jerking off on Raptors and then just all of a sudden be in bot lane without even thinking about it. So, now Teemo, I just might be in the Twilight Zone where I woke up in a different dimension, Doctor Strange tapping me on the forehead telling me I'm in the multiverse, because I don't actually think there's a world where Teemo is a jungler, but he is on this list, so I think I'm just gonna have to put him where he belongs in D tier. Honestly, I think he's just here to make sure Skarner looks good. Yeah, I don't think Teemo's a good jungler. I know my good friend Manko. He is a Teemo jungle enthusiast, and he's very good at it. So he might see this this placement on the tier list and shoot me a couple DMs and flame me for it. But Yeah, there's just no way I'm gonna put Teemo above anyone on this list. So that's where I'm gonna put him. Udyr. Okay. Now Udyr is. I'm about to just hot drop a hot take. Okay, as one does. I think Udyr is S tier. Now. Okay. Udyr is a champion that seems useless when he's not during the Hecarim Udyr phase, like a long time ago. He was basically just like the number 1 or 2 best jungler in the game, and then he fell out of favor, and a lot of people consider Udyr to be useless. The thing is that Udyr is strong when he counters other meta junglers, which he does right now. So pretty much any meta jungler you want to play, Udyr's good into. He's good into Wukong. He's good into, like Viego. He does well versus Diana. He can keep up with Diana, and he can also duel her. He's pretty good against Rek'Sai. Udyr is a great counterpick champion, and when all the meta junglers are countered by Udyr, that's when Udyr's S tier. So I think that Udyr, with his tank build, with the tank items getting buffed, and his Phoenix dance, he is a very, very underrated jungler. So underrated to the fact that I would put him in S tier. So that's where I have Udyr. Okay, Viego, my one trick, my main. I just, maybe I'm a hater, but I just am gonna put him in C tier. Honestly, if I were feeling spiteful today, I'd put him all the way down here because that's how I feel right now. But realistically, Viego is still strong given the right circumstances. Viego, as a champion that you play 100% of the time, it's very, very hard as a one trick to play Viego right now because 50% of the games that you play, he's just the most vilely useless champion you will ever see. It's a lot harder to gank with him now. He doesn't clear very fast. His clear is not good enough to compensate for the fact that his ganks are as weak as they are with the removal of the hidden W that they did. So I think that Viego is always going to be strong to some extent just because of the way his kit is, but I can't put him anywhere higher than C tier. Honestly, I wish I could put him lower just to make a statement, but I'm trying to be reasonable here, so I won't put Viego lower than he is. Alright, Vi. What this tier list is showing me is that there actually is just a lot of champions that are just very mid. I think Vi is kind of one-dimensional, but she, that one-dimensional playstyle isn't necessarily bad, especially as a jungler. Her ganks are strong, her clear is pretty decent, her objective souling is good, but she doesn't do anything particularly amazing, and I think that Vi will just always have kind of mid-tier value. It's hard to imagine a world where Vi in modern day League is like an S tier jungler unless she gets some insanely huge buffs. But I think Vi is strong, and if you like playing her, she's a solid mid-tier champion. Okay, Wukong, S tier. Probably put him above. You know what? Yeah, I'll put him actually as probably the top jungler on the patch. I think Wukong is and has been broken for a long time ever since he got his jungle buffs. He's extremely valuable to your team. Even if he's behind, he still has the knockups. His clear is good, his scaling is good, his dueling is good, team fighting, everything. There's really just very few weaknesses with Wukong. The only weaknesses with Wukong are basically just the people that are playing him. If you're good at Wukong and you actually get to play the champion, you are just incredibly, incredibly impressive. Alright, Xin Zhao. I think that Xin Zhao is probably in the same boat as Jarvan and Elise. Although Xin Zhao does actually have carry potential, but the thing is he hasn't been strong for a long time after he received his nerfs a long time ago. And I can't really see Xin Zhao being good in anything other than some like very niche high-low scenarios. But unless you're good enough or experienced enough on Xin Zhao to know when those scenarios are, you're probably not going to have very much success with Xin Zhao in general. Lee Sin. Lee Sin is such a hard champion to rank because Lee Sin is just honestly purely dependent. His skill is purely dependent on the person playing him. Lee Sin is an extraordinarily high-skilled champion, very high mechanics. If you are in low ranks, you probably will never be able to play Lee Sin. If you're in high ranks, you probably can play Lee Sin every game. It honestly just completely depends on the player. So I think I'm just gonna put him at the top of B tier, which is basically this position is like this champion can be S or D tier. He can literally be anywhere on this list depending on who's piloting him. And I don't think there's many champions in the game that are like that. Nidalee's kind of like that, although I think Nidalee's a worse champion. But I also don't see Nidalee on this list, which is interesting. So I would probably put Nidalee somewhere in high B tier. Lilia is an S tier champion. If you don't think Lilia's S tier, it's probably because you're not building her correctly. The best build on Lilia is Riftmaker into Zanya's Frozen Heart, or Riftmaker into Zanya's into some kind of tank mythic. Building Bruiser Lilia is the best way to 1v9. She's legitimately unkillable with this build, and still does an unbelievable amount of damage. I think Lilia, if you don't think Lilia's S tier, you're underrating her. She's extraordinarily strong, and I definitely would put Lilia in S tier. Alright, Ivern, I think he's a D tier champion. You as a jungler, you don't ever want to be playing an enchanter for low rank teammates. Even in higher rank, it doesn't get that much better. I mean, obviously supporting better players is a blessing, but the other thing is that if you're versus high rank players, they can build Serpent's Fang, basically completely neutralizes your champion. If they understand your pathing, which a lot of higher level players do, it makes Ivern a lot weaker. And then obviously Ivern in LolElekktro is just a complete disaster story. I could not even begin to I would not even want to begin to imagine what Ivern feels like in LolElekktro. And then last but not least, Nunu and Willump is an A tier champion. I'm probably gonna put him at the end of A tier, because Nunu is a champion that basically just wants to gank a shit ton. He wants to just impact the map as much as he can, and he will. He basically, I think that Nunu, the reason you see him in solo queue and not pro play is because pro players would never allow Nunu to do the things that Nunu does to players in solo queue. But you can just get away with so much with him. His ganks are probably top 5 in the game. His early game tempo is top 5 in the game. But he is a tank, and he is an early game champion mostly, so you can't really fully 1v9 on him. Anyway, there's one champion that's not on this list for whatever reason, and that is Volibear. I would say that Volibear is easily S tier. Volibear is actually my current perma ban. I either ban Yuumi or Volibear at the moment. I might even put Volibear as the #1 spot on this list. It's kind of a shame that he's not on this list. I'm not sure. But Volibear would be S tier if you're wondering about him. He is extremely strong. He's getting a nerf though, so at least that's good. But Volibear is a champion that is just turbo 1v9 all the time. I've literally never seen that champion do bad in the last patch or two. So anyways, that is my thoughts on all the junglers. Hopefully, I didn't hurt your feelings if I put any of your favorite champions in the lower tiers, but I'm pretty confident looking at this list that I got most things correct. A lot of champions in B tier. There's a lot of champions that, in the jungle role, I feel like you can make just about anything work. Mostly just by nature of the role being so unpredictable and dependent on so many factors. I feel like if you're good enough, you can make a lot of these champions work. There's probably no champion on this list, even Teemo, that you can't make work if you're skilled enough at it. But I think this list is pretty good. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts on each individual champion. If you want me to change something up for the next time I do a video like this, let me know. Other than that, thank you for watching. Comment if you want another video like this for patch 12.13 when it comes out. And yeah, have a great night. Sub to the channel, and peace.